How you doing, and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel, whichever it may be. As you can see today, I'm taking a look at the Sideshow Collectibles Labria from their Scum and Villainy collection, and just having a quick look at the box, you can see we have an image of Labria on the front there holding his blaster. Typical Scum and Villainy box, not much really on the side. And on the back, in typical Scum and Villainy collection style, we have an image of the figure on the left, a small monologue about the character on the right hand side, and then the cantina crew at the bottom. So there we have it for the box. Swiftly moving on, we will have a quick pan of the figure and go through some facts before we get into the accessories and the details. And here we have a quick pan of the figure Labria. And just a few facts while we do this scan. There's not much information that's canon about this guy from that small little snippet of him, that couple of seconds of him in the cantina in Star Wars A New Hope. So most of this information comes from Star Wars Legends, specifically tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina novel that's out there. So he is a Devaronian from the planet Devaron, and according to legends, his nickname is the Butcher of Montelian Surret. Due to fighting against his own people, he fought with the Empire in an insurgency on his own planet, and he butchered thousands of his own kind, or his own people, and that earned him the death sentence in his own world. He earned his money by posing as a drunk in places like the cantina while listening to other people's conversations and selling those secrets to the likes of bounty hunters and the Empire. He was eventually caught by Boba Fett and brought back to his home planet to face justice for his crimes against his people. And the mask that was used in the movie was actually not created for a Star Wars movie or for the Star Wars movie. It was created for a never released 1970 movie by John Landis called I Was a Teenage Vampire. So it was altered slightly, but it was never intended for a Star Wars movie. So that's just a couple of facts. If you want to know more details about the character of Labria, I would recommend the novel Star Wars Legends Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina. I think it's on audiobook as well, so you could grab a copy of it on audiobook as well. So moving on, let's have a look at the accessories that come with Labria. And here we are for everything that comes with Labria. Not much to go on here, very light on accessories. We have 5 hands in total, 2 relaxed palms, 2 open palm gesturing hands, and a trigger hand for his blaster. And I'll just quickly show you the Dr. Cornelius Evazan hands, which are clones of these hands here. They are repurposed, reused hands from the Dr. Cornelius and a couple of other figures, and they've just been repainted and repurposed for the Labria figure. Not a bad paint job on them, in the sense that they do have that kind of orangey crimson colour on them, a bit of moulded in vein work on them, some darkness on the knuckle area there, and he has his black fingernails as they should be, and the palm is okay painted as well. A little bit of darkness up at the fingertips, and on the knuckle areas there are darker, as I mentioned. So they're not bad, they're fit for purpose, they do the job, but they are complete clones or reused from some of their previous figures. Then we have his blaster. Now, I don't recall ever seeing his blaster, especially in that part in A New Hope, so I'm not sure how accurate this is, but it is a cool looking blaster. There's no moving parts on it there. I don't know what this piece at the side is supposed to be. I'm not really sure. This isn't even an optic at the top. It looks more like a dart, or it shoots a dart out of it or something. It's very unusual. It's not, you know, it's certainly not an optic. And then it has this little piece on the end of the barrel. It's really cool looking blaster, to be honest. It's a bit of dry brushing on it there, a bit of a silver effect, nicely done on it, and a little bit of a wood effect on the grip of it. So not a bad looking blaster. Very, very unusual and very nice looking blaster. It is absolutely usable and serviceable for the figure. So there we have it for all of the accessories that come with Labria, not many. And just something else I want to note as well is because the hands are repurposed from other figures, it doesn't quite form to the grip of the blaster. As you can see, he's only just about kind of hanging on to it. It doesn't quite form into the shape of the grip because it's not specifically designed for Labria's blaster. It's a reused hand, so you can see the finger doesn't even go on the trigger. Now you can work it around and you can get, manipulate the finger. You can get it into the trigger and it will go on, but it doesn't sit right. It doesn't sit quite right on the hand. You can see it's only just about sitting on. And because the fingers are so stiff, the fingers are very stiff, it is difficult to get it on. And it's the same with Dr. Cornelius' hand. You can see there, because the fingers are so stiff, I have actually removed some of the paint from the thumb there, trying to get his blaster in and out of his hand, because they are very, very stiff fingers. Not impossible to pull them apart, but it is a little bit more difficult than some other figures out there. And I am going to end up removing paint from the hands on this Labria figure as well. I can actually see a bit of it kind of happening there. It's kind of, on the palm, it's taken off a little bit of paint there. So yeah, and even on the knuckle there on the inside, that's only from putting the blaster in his hand a couple of times, and I've already started losing paint. So not ideal. It is what it is, nothing I can do about it, but I just thought I'd note that. And here we are for Labria, pretty much straight up as he comes out of the box. And if I just take him off the stand there, we'll have a quick look at the stand. Typical Sideshow stand, very, very bland, very, very boring. Star Wars written on the bottom of it there, which I've said many times makes no sense. It should be written on the top where it can be seen. It's getting very boring, these stands here for Sideshow. They need to kind of, use their imagination a little bit and spend a bit of money. If they're going to be charging Hot Toys prices for figures, they really do need to improve on that basis. And these figures are expensive for what they are. Let me get them on the base there. There we go. So let's start off with his cloak, and we'll get that out of the way before we move on to the rest of them. Very, very soft material. I'm not sure if the camera's picking up on the amount of dust on it there. It is an absolute dust magnet. I'm constantly kind of brushing it off, and anybody who's going to be displaying this outside of a display cabinet is on a shelf is going to have a lot of trouble with the amount of dust that this thing is catching. It's a really, really soft material, very nice material, I will say. It's like a felt. Now, unfortunately, I've steamed this a couple of times. I'm going to bring the light up a little bit because that is not shown very well. I beg your pardon. It is going to blow out his face a little bit there, but we are focusing on the cloak. It's very, very wrinkled. There's a lot of wrinkling on it. And like I said, I've steamed it a couple of times to try and get them out. And you can see it does have this kind of an unnatural drape to it as well. It should realistically come in a little bit more like that. But because it's not wired, it can't be manipulated. There's absolutely no wires running through it. It is kind of like a drape. But because of the material they've used, that's really, really light, it doesn't drape very well. And you can see even on the hood of it there, no matter how much I try to flatten it down, it just won't sit naturally at all because of the material that they've used. It's so light that it won't hold the weight of the hood down. It won't hold it down. Not great for natural posing. And as I said, it doesn't have any wires running through it. Very, very wrinkled, as you can see. And on the bottom of it, you can kind of see there that they've weathered it very, very subtly. I'm not even sure if the camera's picking up on that actually. It's so subtle, they may not have even bothered putting the weathering in it. It's almost non-existent, that little bit of weathering at the ends of it there. So really kind of pointless in trying to put the weathering on if they're not going to make it stand out. As I said, no wires, and the hood doesn't sit very naturally. Not the worst I've ever seen. I have seen worse. It can kind of be manipulated down and worked. Maybe, as you can see there, it's okay. I've seen better, but let's bring the colour back, or the light back down a bit, and get this guy, get the cloak off him, and have a look at the rest of the figure without the cloak on. So here we have Labria without his cloak on, and Starting off from bottom to top, we'll have a look at his boots, and he is wearing the identical boots to the other figures that I've reviewed. The Garandan, the Dr. Cornelius Evazan, and the Panda Baba figure. There is a texture to them to make them look like a leather effect, and there is a split boot design, as you can see, which allows for articulation, although I don't think this is the kind of figure that you would be putting into too many dynamic poses, but the option is there with the split boot. It doesn't look absolutely incredible. I'm not a big fan of split boots, but it is what it is. There is a bit of dry brushing on the toes of them there, very subtle, but it is there, and they are a black boot with a flat sole on them and nothing written on the bottom. Moving to his trousers, they are a navy trouser, as you can see, and there is a nice bit of weathering on them, which I'm quite impressed with them. The knee section there is quite weathered. It's quite nicely done. It's not uniformed either. There's more on one leg than there is on the other, and the material is quite nice material as well. It's very reminiscent of the Clint Eastwood collection trousers that they've used on those figures, on a couple of those figures. The weathering does extend around to the back on one of the legs more so than the other. As I said, it's not entirely uniformed, which is perfect for me. I like the fact that it's, it just adds more realism to it, that it's not uniformed. And it does look grubby, and it's really nicely done. I'm very impressed with the weathering, the amount of weathering on the trousers and how well it's done. Then we have his robe there, it's tabard, and it is 100% pleather. It's very, very soft, but it is made of a pleather, which is a bit of a worry for deterioration and longevity. There's no weathering on this at all. There's no paint or anything put on it. Stitched quite well, as you can see there. It's quite well stitched. These shoulder parts tend to deform down a little bit. I constantly have to kind of readjust them and get them to lift up away from the shoulder. Obviously with the cloak on, it pushes them down and deforms them. Like I said, it is a pleather material. And on the inside there, you can see we have the typical Sideshow Collectibles lining that they put on 99% of the inside of their coats or jackets. It's common knowledge really that they use the same lining for most of their figures. Not accurate. It's never really accurate with the lining, but it's not the end of the world, as it will not be seen on this particular figure anyway. Moving up to his belt, we have this plastic belt buckle. It looks okay. It doesn't look metal. It does look a bit plasticky the way it's painted. There's not a whole lot of detail to it, and there's not a great effect to it. And then we have his, again, 100% pleather belt. A little bit of weathering around the edges of it there, a little wear, on the edges of it. I do have his blaster holster there, and it does connect magnetically and just snap in, and which is the usual form for them, and it works quite well. But unfortunately, it is pleather. A little bit of weathering on the edge of it there as well, as you can see. But it's just a worry that in future there is going to be some deterioration with all this pleather. Then we have his navy shirt that he has on him, and it's not weathered. It doesn't necessarily have to be. The length of it covering the wrist joints is quite nicely done. If you lift it up, it does kind of reveal them a little bit, but not the end of the world. It is what it is. And then underneath that, on top of the shirt, we have this kind of cross between a tie or a scarf. It's really thick, so it's not really a tie. It's, like I said, it's tied up like a tie, but it's like a cross between a scarf and a tie. And there is a bit of futzing need doing with it. I do have to kind of keep pulling it down from the inside there, from the bottom, just to get it all to kind of sit correctly. And on the collar of his shirt, I'm not sure if the camera's picking up on that. Let's see if I can get him down a little bit. But I have had to kind of keep getting the tweezers and pulling the collar out, because it was just, from manufacturing, it was just tucked in. I'm not sure if the camera's picking up on that crease line there where it was originally creased, and there wasn't a whole lot of the collar coming out, so I have had to kind of pinch it with the tweezers and pull it more out just to reveal a bit more of the collar of the shirt. But now that I have that done, it does look the part. There is kind of a grain in the pleather tabard to make it appear as though it is a leather, which looks the part. It's scaled down, it looks well, it kind of looks like a stressed leather, but it's really well done. It's just unfortunate that it's not, potentially not going to keep. I'm just trying to see if this part is buckled up. Is the tabard attached on either side? I don't think it is. I think the belt is just holding everything together. No, it's not. It's not connected. No, it's separate. It's just a belt that's holding it all together, which is, which is probably the way it should be. So there we are for his outfit. So let's move on to the head sculpt and see what we have with this Labria head sculpt. So here we are for the head sculpt for Labria, and I have to say I'm quite impressed with it. It looks just like he did in that short couple of seconds that we see him on screen in A New Hope. I think the expression is pretty spot on. He does have that devilish grin. He does have the prominent teeth coming out from that smile, and they are very gunky. There's a yellowness to them. The gums look black. They're sitting on his bottom lip just like they were in the movie. Obviously it was to do with the teeth that were put in over the actor's real teeth, or maybe connected to the mask, but the expression is pretty spot on, and I have no complaints about the paintwork either. That kind of orangey crimson colour that he has is pretty spot on for how he looked in the movie, and I really do like this vein work that's on the side of the sculpt and the back of the head there. You can see the veins running through the head, and they're painted quite well, and there is a bit of relief to them. They're not just painted on, they are actually part of the mould. And then up the back of the head you can see he has these kind of ridges running all the way down the centre of his head there, and you don't see the back of his head in the movie. I'm not sure how accurate that is. I'm sure they've used the mask as reference, and it is supposed to be there, and there's a nice little darkness to the ridges as well, paint just to separate them and make them look a bit more prominent. And the horns are painted quite well as well, and there's a nice texture to them. They've kind of got this natural kind of, how do I explain it, kind of horn growing texture to them, where it looks like there's layers to them as they've come up, and the tip of this one here kind of fades off into this same kind of crimson colour as his skin, and this one here also, but not as noticeable as this one here. So that, again, they're not uniformed, and you can see that they are separate pieces. They are separate to the sculpt, so they're sculpted separately and then glued into to give more depth to the sculpt and to make them look like they are actually growing out of his head, and they do look the part. And there's a nice little kind of ridge around them as well where they go into this sculpt, and you can see there's a nice bit of darkness to the underneath of his eyes as well, as there should be. No rolling eyeball function. Sideshow don't do that, but it's not the end of the world. It still does the job. You can see the cheekbones as well are quite prominent. They stick right out, and the lines in his face are sculpted quite well from the smile, and they really look the part. Really looks good. And then the ears kind of look vampiric kind of ears to him, and as I mentioned in the scan of the figure, that this sculpt was, or this mask was never intended for the Star Wars movie. So, it was for a 1970s movie called When I Was a Teenage Vampire, or I Was a Teenage Vampire, or something like that. So that would kind of explain the vampiric ears that he has. But again, looking at the vein work running down the sculpt, look absolutely fantastic. I really do like that vein work, and the details in the sculpt, they're really, really done well. And you can see the way the nose kind of flattens out as well, which is again on point. He looked like that in that quick flash that we got of him in the movie. So there we have it for the sculpt for Labria. As some of you might know, this figure is limited. He's limited to only 500 worldwide, as far as I believe. So I don't think there's too many of them about. And I do like the fact that he is a limited figure and that he will he look very unique in people's collections, given that there's only so many of them worldwide. So with the addition of Labria into my collection, that actually completes my Sideshow Collectibles Scum and Villainy Cantina crew, as you can see there, all 5 of them together. As a collective, they look great, they all look great together, and they all complement each other quite well. And the next wave will be Jabba the Hutt's palace or barge, the crew that's there. I have Bib Fortuna going to be shipping to me in the next few days, so I'll be moving on to the next wave. So keep your eye out for a review for Bib Fortuna coming very soon. So there we have it for the Sideshow Collectibles Mos Eisley Cantina crew all together at last, and they look great together. They all look really good together. And that's also it for the Sideshow Collectibles Labria figure from the Scum and Villainy collection. If you did like this kind of content, please do hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps support the channel, and keep your eye out for future content from myself. I am going to put this guy in my Sideshow Collectibles playlist, and I've also created a Scum and Villainy playlist as well. So check out those, and thank you very much, and see you in the next one.